Anti-Afro, Spingali's. I'm going to start with it right up front. Carrie Ann did not leave that Umar Johnson sector because of a funeral. She didn't leave the Umar Johnson sector because she had faking ass freaks who claimed to be her friend who were exposed not to be friends. Carrie Ann has had that experience many times over, and she's been a part of that process. It's an evolving cycle. One of the most important but least recognized realities is an overemphasis on believability. And when I say believability, those who have information that's factual place way too much emphasis in trying to get others to believe them. If you have the truth, you just speak the truth. You can't control if somebody believes what you say. If you have something to say it. Now, obviously, there are circumstances when it's important to make sure what you're saying can be proven to be credible. But there's no requirement for that. I'm talking in particular about posting content in these YouTube streets. Fact of the matter is, Carrie Ann got the hell up out of here because the authorities were called. Carrie Ann was amping up, talking about ready to give responses on whatever was being said, whether it was a wake or a funeral, but she shut it down. And the timing proves that. The timing lines right up in and around the time my call went in. Now, there are those who very clearly don't have to make any effort to show who they really are. And we saw this with what happened with Carrie Ann. But before I go more into that, I want to illustrate an example about the experience that Carrie Ann just went through with these other subjects. This is what they go through back and forth many times over. Whether it's Carrie Ann perpetrating the backstabbing at any given cycle or the other subjects perpetrating the backstabbing at any given cycle. Check it out, what you see on the screen here. Think about these two words and how it relates to a friend. Well, I'll tell you this much. It's not what Carrie Ann got a few nights ago. It's not what Carrie Ann got at all. I need to tell you something that went down that reminded me of what happened with Carrie Ann. And the exact opposite that I want to share with you, it's every bit related to what happened with Carrie Ann. So these people here on the screen, I'm sure there are a good number of you who may know who they are. There are students from Idaho. And unfortunately, the students with the red circles lost their lives in a vicious, horrendous knife attack. And the person who pled guilty to these crimes, Brian Kohlberg, is right here on the screen. You see on the other side of the screen, a college student and his girlfriend. His name is Hunter Johnson. He said on the evening of these murders, November 2023, he had an odd, strange feeling. He got up in the middle of the night and felt that he had to lock the bedroom door of his girlfriend, which he did. Then he went back to bed. Meanwhile, down the street, one of the roommates, there are 6 people. These 6 people you see here in the middle picture, they all live in the same house. The student in the yellow said she heard this rustling mini commotion and heard one of the other roommates say, "Somebody's in here," and sounded frightened. And then she heard a voice, "Don't worry, I'm going to help you." That's what she heard. She went to her door, did not open it. She locked her door and was listening and didn't hear anything else. She stood there for a few more minutes and decided to just open her door. And then she saw a man there in dark clothing with a mask on, like a ski mask. But some of his eyes were showing. And she saw his eyebrows, and quote, bushy eyebrows. He just took off. So the person in yellow just could not bring herself to leave the room. So she starts to text and text feverishly all of the people in the home, and she's not getting any answers. It's strange because before the incident occurred, she was exchanging text messages with the student who said someone's here. Before she said that, she was terrified, did not leave her room, then eventually fell asleep. Woke up in the morning and started texting again, nothing. Then she decides to get a hold of Hunter Johnson down the street. He comes over, first by himself, then his girlfriend comes. He had gathered all of the people that were there. The woman in purple has come out. She had slept through everything, still doesn't know what's going on, and had them come outside, and he's basically taking control of the situation. He says he's going to go in there, and he's going to look in the room to see what happened to the friend who said someone's in here. Just wait outside, and they listen to him. There's trust, obviously. So he goes in there, and he sees that the person that was heard making the statement, someone's here, horrendously, just, you can imagine, a knife was used. And then another person, the male, was in there. He was also deceased. He came outside. He wasn't screaming and hollering. He said that one of the girl's name, or the student's name, was Kaylee. Kaylee won't wake up. So we need to call 911. Do not go in there. And they listened to him. So they called 911, and he continues to simply make sure they state that she won't wake up. They don't know what he saw, and he didn't disclose it. A protective and commendable act. He spared his friends. He didn't pull out a cell phone and start taking pictures. He didn't get hysterical and say they're stabbed up and this is horrible. He never told them what he saw. That is a commendable act, to bear the burden, to take the risk, to see what's going on. And then when you see what's going on or what's happened, you decide to spare your friend horror, unimaginable horror that they could have seen. I mean, I can't imagine what would have happened had he told them, because the survivors are having an incredibly difficult time. The two women, the woman circled in purple and the woman in yellow who saw the killer. So let's go back to Carrie Ann. What steps were taken to show that the subjects who were in Carrie Ann's chat, who've been cheering her on, who claimed they were her friends, including the subject that was arguing with her, what did they do through all of this stuff going on? Through everything Carrie Ann was saying, she's making the statements about being off medication, not wanting to take medication, asking for help from people to remind her, or a so-called friend to remind her. But when she continued to spiral completely out of control, then started using threats of violence, there was no protection and there was no commendable acts by supposed friends of Carrie Ann. Let this be a cautionary tale, folks. And don't try to put it on it's social media. Don't try to put it on there are no friends in social media. That's bullshit. It doesn't matter where you are. It matters who the people are, not the circumstances. You can be a good friend to someone, but that has nothing to do with whether they're going to be a good friend to you. I mean, let me just say this. Carrie Ann was crying about, I was a good friend, I've been a good friend, I'm a good friend to NPW, I'm a good friend to the egg donor, I'm a good friend to this person, I'm a good friend to that person. Really? How are you a good friend if the second something happens, you run to YouTube and you spill their personal business? That's not a good friend. A good friend is just a good friend. You don't take that back. If you take it back, you never were a good friend. You don't reverse being a good friend. You can stop being a friend to someone, but how can you be a good friend to person A, but a bad friend to person B? Now, I believe there are people who just don't gel. The personalities don't mesh. But does that mean you have to do something detrimental to them to show I'm a bad friend to you, but I'm a good friend to the other person? No, is you just don't mesh with the person. It doesn't mean you have to do anything destructive. And then while you're doing it, you're talking about what a great friend you were to them. No, that's why it imploded, because it was always fake, it was always phony. There was never any semblance of friendship. These 6 people described themselves as best friends, and this picture here was taken just a couple of hours before the murders. You can even apply that to the murderer. He went into, obviously, an unlocked door because there was no forced entry anywhere, and decided, he made the decision to take 4 lives. Somebody else could have went in there and just wanted some beer and wanted to make a sandwich. They weren't there to kill anybody. It depends on the person, not the circumstances. I also think the fact that he was a criminal justice major or criminology major, I shouldn't say major, he was in the doctoral program. That doesn't mean anything. He probably knew what he was going to do the whole time and went into that field for a very specific reason. Just like you have those pastors and those reverends. They didn't have a calling. They made a specific point to go into the clergy to do dirty. They go in there to do dirty specifically. There was no calling, but then when they say, oh, there's something wrong with the church. No, there's nothing wrong with the church. There's something wrong with the individuals who go there with ulterior and evil in mind, just like this killer did. He knew he was going there to kill, not the circumstances, the individual. Those who are involved run around and complain and claim there are no friends on YouTube. No, let me tell you again. It's not that there are no friends. They are aware that they are not a friend. I am not saying you got to put your life at risk and jump off of a mountain. Put it back over with the Carrie Ann situation. Not a single one of those subjects thought, even for half a second, to put any call in to see if somebody could go over there and check out what the hell was going on. I'm not Carrie Ann's friend. I'm not professing to be Carrie Ann's friend. Never have, never will be. It's a public safety issue. That's my context. What is the context for those who claim to be in Carrie Ann's corner, who claim to be supporting her? They were doing nothing but supporting her demise and self-destruction. That is the only thing they were supporting. Sitting around and waiting. I was told people were going over to her channel. So-and-so's doing this, so-and-so's doing that, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that, doing it on the live stream. Oh my goodness, that's a friend? And then Carrie Ann would say, they said that? She said that? They're saying that? They're doing that? It's not commendable and it's not protective. I'll furthermore state, those who exhibit the behaviors like you saw with the fake friends of Carrie Ann, they know they're not good friends. They're always going to try to find an excuse to justify their lack of caring, their lack of protection, and there is no commendable acts to speak of. And now Carrie was running around screaming and hollering about protection. You can't force somebody to have a protective stance towards you. Either they do or they don't. That is inherent. What you see are subjects who are sour on humanity. And when you're sour on humanity, you don't even know what it feels like to be a friend, much less have a friend. They have no concept of that. They're only interested in taking from others, getting an advantage, feeling better, prevailing. through any means necessary. And prevailing means all these people over here on the channel are believing me on my side. They want to kid themselves into thinking that's a support system. And those are friends. They were over on her channel acting as if they cared. But when it came right down to it, they showed they did not care. That is up to them if they want to sit here and perpetrate and try to convince someone that they're actually a friend. They are not a friend. But those who want to go about talking about there are no friends in these YouTube streets, that's because they aren't one. There is no prohibition, there is no restriction on any place where people link up with someone who ends up being a friend, a partner, a spouse, however you want to describe it. It turns out positive. Those who shit on it know they don't have access to it because they're not worthy to even serve in the role as friend. And they know that. This is why when they receive, you hear the term grace and mercy or respect, they don't know how to handle that. They're not used to people treating them in a decent manner. They're used to being treated like shit. So they're never going to trust when anyone treats them with respect. They don't like it. They're uncomfortable with it. Now, someone treating you with respect, those are the building blocks of a friendship. But there's one problem. The subject who is looking at someone else and sees their positive traits resent those traits. And they want to find a way as quickly as possible to show how much they can shit on someone who's done something for them. See, they don't feel worthy, but then they try to put it on those who do feel worthy and know they're good friends. They know how badly they feel about themselves, so what do they want to do? They want to try to bring you along in it. They want to sour your faith in humanity. If you're a decent person, nobody can sour your faith in humanity. That's the devil that got a hold of you. And when the devil gets a hold, we see what happens. There are just some things you don't play games with. And I know there are often times when subjects make a concerted effort to make comedy out of circumstances that are very serious. And they try to avoid doing what needs to be done. When it comes down to certain circumstances, I'm going to do what needs to be done. Dangerous situation needs to be addressed accordingly. Whoever decides not to take it seriously, that is on them. I will not be left with any negative consequences. I will reemphasize, it's very easy to see, like it's always been seen before, what is real and what is fake when it comes down to, quote, friends, unquote. Another underestimated reality of life is whether someone will learn a, quote, lesson, unquote. Not my responsibility if someone learns a lesson based on their non-law abiding and crossing the line or illegal behavior or actionable conduct, however you want to put it. Whether they learn a lesson, that is on them. It's not my responsibility to teach anybody a, quote, lesson, unquote. If something needs to be done, I'll do it. I'm not going to sit here in these YouTube streets engaging in any process that involves illegality. Whether anyone decides to believe it, it makes no difference to me. The outcome for me is important. When I'm putting out information, and you can just look around you, all the effort that went in trying to transpose non-law abiding behavior onto others, it has not worked. Didn't work in the past, not working now, not going to work in the future. But what I will say is this for certain. More to come. Buyer beware.